And a very good hump day Wednesday afternoon. Welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. Coming to you live from I-95, the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's 4 p.m. Eastern Time, whatever time zone you happen to be in. Welcome to the show. And we're going to get right down to business because there's a baseball game that's going to be starting in about 5 minutes. And I just want to let you know about it just in case you might be interested in betting on this game as well. It's one of the games that was selected by the pros. It's a 4:05 game between the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. This is a National East game of rivals. They've split the first two games that they played against each other this week. Phillies winning the opener 5-3. They were plus 180 on the dogs, and the Mets won last night 8-4 as minus 127 on the favorites on the money line. Now, in today's rubber game, the Mets are going to start lefty David Peterson, who was 6-2 last year with a 3.44 ERA, while the Phillies come back with their ace, Aaron Nola. Had a no record for last season with a 2.70 ERA. This line opened with Philadelphia listed as a minus 140 favorite. Now, some of the books opened closer to minus 120. Regardless of the opener, the pro money seems to be backing the Phillies at home, as we've seen Philadelphia go up to minus 150 on the money line. Now, remember, teams with a line move of 10 or more are 20-10 so far this season. That equates to 67%. Teams that rise to minus 150 when they move by 10 points or more are 67% this season. We've also seen liability on the over on this one. The total is 8, and the over already has been juiced up from 115 to 120, again, depending on which sports book you happen to be dealing with. So if you're looking to bet this game, or if you were thinking about it, or maybe not, the whole point is this: the pros are on in this particular game. The pros are on the Philadelphia Phillies in this game against the Mets. It's in Philadelphia. And again, we jump to that real quickly. Normally, what we do when we start the show is we talk about things that happened the day before. But because of the time constraints and this game does supposedly start around 4:05 Eastern Time. That's just a couple of minutes away. Wanted to give you that information in case you were thinking of betting on this game, and maybe you weren't thinking about betting on it, but when you've heard what we just said, you might be thinking, hey, maybe I'll get on board here, take the Phillies in this game because that's who the pros are on. So that's the story there. So once again, welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. As usual, I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as coming to you on some podcast platforms as well, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. There are many, many more that we are on, and they are most of the major platforms for podcasting. So that's the story there. And like usual, we're going to be talking about what happened yesterday, but we're also going to be talking about the Masters Golf Tournament coming up this Thursday, tomorrow. So we're going to go over some angles, some thoughts and ideas, talk about a couple of the players, and seeing with their odds, perhaps you might be interested in betting on golf, because golf is quickly becoming a very participating sport as far as wagering is concerned, much more than it has ever been. And we're also going to give you some tips on betting on baseball. Baseball is a different animal when it comes to betting. So we're going to be talking about that as well, give you some tips and ideas and some thoughts as to help you to become a much better handicapper over the time. So let's take a look at what happened yesterday. In Major League Baseball, the favorites and the underdogs, they split 7-7 with the biggest upset coming from the Red Sox, who were a plus 145 on the money line against the Rays. Now, the last game of the night was the Diamondbacks, and they were a plus 110 on the money line, won 10-8 in 13 innings at Denver in Colorado. The Dogs still lead 37-33 straight up on this season so far. Of course, there were 3 picks as well. The overs went 8-6 yesterday. The over-unders are back to 500 at 36 and 36. They're even as of this moment. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the favorites went 5-2 straight up and against the spread as well. So the Dogs weren't as barking as loud yesterday as they were the day before. The 76ers and the Celtics closed as a pick'em, and the upsets were by the Grizzlies, who were plus 6.5 point dog against the Heat, and the Warriors, who were 2.5 point dogs against the Bucks. The favorites improved their lead to 50.5%, 50.5% so far on the season, and the overs went 5-3 yesterday, and now they take the lead 374-373. It's only 1 game lead. They've been going back and forth since the big season practically began. Meanwhile, in the National Hockey League, the favorites went 5-4 straight up, but there were some upsets. The Sabres, the Blue Jackets, the Blackhawks, and the Ducks all covered. The overs went 7-2. They went 12-4 over the last couple of days after the unders were doing very, very well the 3 days before that. The unders still lead, however. They're at 51.6% on the season. Looking at the first period unders, they went 6-3 yesterday. They still lead, and they're up to 53.4% so far this season. So that's a roundup of baseball, basketball, hockey. That's all the stuff that went on yesterday with some thoughts and ideas in those directions. So that's the story. We're going to come back. We're going to take our first break. And when we do return, we're going to take a look at one other game on tap for today. It's at 4:10 p.m., and that's the St. Louis Cardinals against the Miami Marlins. So we'll go into that game as soon as we come back from our break, which is coming up right now. So just a reminder, you're in the Sports Wagering Zone. We will be back into the zone right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. And let's take a look at the baseball game that will be starting shortly as well. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Miami Marlins, trying to see which direction the pros are going. Because the Cardinals have taken the first 2 games of this season. They won 4-1 as plus 100 dogs. And then they won 4-2 as plus 115 dogs. Now, in today's series finale, the Cardinals give the ball to their ace, Jack Flaherty, who's 12 big ERA at 12.46. And the Marlins will send out Pablo Lopez, who has no ERA at all, no wins, no losses. The game opened at a virtual pick'em. Both sides listed as a minus 105 on the odds. Meanwhile, the pro money seems to be leaning on the Cardinals to complete the sweep when we've seen St. Louis go up from being a minus 105 to a 112 and then even up to 115 on some places as well. Now, we might be in for another low-scoring game as the total is 7.5 with the heavy underjuice of minus 120. Now, low totals have historically benefited favorites as the fewer amount of expected runs scored are more likely to come from the better team. So in this particular game, if you're still interested in getting involved, it's the St. Louis Cardinals, and that's who the pros are looking at. So in the first game, we're talking about the Mets against Philadelphia. The pros are on the Phillies. Cardinals against the Marlins. The pros are on the Cardinals. I know the game's just started, but we wanted to get the information out so that we can keep our record straight and also kind of give you an idea that as far as that's concerned, what the record is like, so that just because they picked them, I don't want to come back later and say, oh, yeah, that's who they had because they won. So I'm trying to keep it all honest and above board, try to give you the information before the game starts or maybe just as the game starts. So this way we have nothing of a advantage going in and trying to select which team we're going to play. So those are the games on tap for today. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati played earlier. And in that particular game, the pros were on Cincinnati, and they were big winners in that particular game. In the two games coming up at this hour, they like the Phillies over New York, the Mets, that is, the Miami Marlins, the St. Louis Cardinals. In that particular game, they like the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's the story as far as baseball is concerned and the games that are on tap for today and in which direction the pro money is going. That's what we're doing. We're looking to see in which direction the line is moving, and once we determine in which direction it's going, we have a good idea as to in which direction the pro money is going. And that's the whole basic idea of this particular little system. Now, we've used the system with the NFL. We've had a successful season with the football. We had a very successful season as far as the tournament was concerned in college basketball. And now, so far, it hasn't really started out too good. But of course, you don't have much data to put into it right now. We've only had 12 games that we've actually talked about. 4 winners and 8 losers. Got a lot of ground to make up, but as we all know, those kind of things do go bounce back and forth. They'll finally settle into an area, and that's where it'll probably stay for the rest of the season. We'll keep you up to date on it, let you know how it's going, so this way you can use it depending which way you want to. You can look at the way it's looking right now with 4 winners and 8 losers. You might say, gee, maybe they're ready to start making some moves and they're going to start winning some games. You may lean to them in that direction, or you can look at it through another way and say, hey, they're not doing so well. I think they're going to do even worse. So I'm going to bet against them in this situation. So that's the story on those. We'll keep you up to date on it, let you know what it is, but as always, letting you make the final decision as to what to do. Okay. Anyway, we're going to take our second break. And like we always say, we take 3 breaks in the show. Each one is of about a minute duration, maybe a few seconds over a minute, but it's generally in that particular area. So just a reminder that we will be back into the sports wagering zone. And when we do come back, we're going to take a look at the golf tournament coming up tomorrow, the Great Masters Tournament out of Augusta, Georgia. Those guys are fighting over the green jacket. So we'll be back right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you over the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, live as usual. We're also podcasting on most of the major podcast platforms, such as iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, you name it, Amazon Music. We're on all of those as well. So we talked about a couple of baseball games that are on tap. They've already started. We talked about the first game with Philadelphia. We took the Phillies in that game and over the Mets. And in the second game, the Cardinals over the Marlins. That's the way the pros are looking at those two games. In the meantime, tomorrow, the Masters tournament, Augusta, Georgia. The 2021 Masters is going to be played, I think a little less than 5 months from the last time they played, okay, back in November. The golfers, we'll see which ones are in form. So I want to take a close look and see which ones might be one you might be thinking about placing a wager on, and which players offer the best betting value, and also which are the best matchups to bet. Because in golf, you can bet matchups. You can take two golfers and say, I think golfer A is going to beat golfer B, or I think golfer B is going to do better than golfer C. It's all different ways that you can bet as far as golf is concerned. Now, we have talked about that on the show before, trying to give you an idea as to some of the principles and some of the ideas on how to bet on golf, because it's a little different from your usual way that you bet on baseball or football or basketball or any of the other sports as well. So what we're going to do is take a look at a couple of guys that are going to be playing tomorrow, kind of give you an idea so we think who might be a good bet for you, and see how you think about it. The best value that we kind of look at, it looks like Jon Rahm looks like a pretty good value. He's at 13-1 as far as BetMGM is concerned. And just to tell you about Jon Rahm a little bit, a couple of weeks ago, he was playing, and his wife had her first child, so a baby boy. He was born on Sunday morning of the end of the tournament last week, but now it's expected that he's going to be in Augusta and he's going to be playing in his first major of the season. Now, 5 years ago, Danny Willett and his wife had their first child just days before the Masters, and you know what? Danny went on to win that tournament that year. So it's something to look at. It was kind of, maybe coincidental, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if you want to use that as an example of why you should bet on somebody because, their wife had a baby last week or not. It worked one time and it worked very, very well. So if you're thinking about it, looking at him about 13-1, Jon Rahm may very well be a pretty good bet coming up. Now, he's still as good as it gets in the tee to green situation. He's very good that way. He consistently hits a lot of greens. He's sixth in greens regulation, and so he's pretty good in that respect. Long greens here in Augusta, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who can drive the ball a long way right down the green. So this will come down to that flat stick, which has been slow to catch fire in 2021. Now, 3 straight top 10 finishes at Augusta should be enough of an indicator that he'll likely be near the top of the leaderboard come Sunday. So remember, 3 of the top 10 finishes at Augusta was Jon Rahm. Meanwhile, there's Rory McIlroy. He's at 19-1. He finds himself a little out of the official world of the golf rankings, amongst the top 10 for the first time. And it's the first time since 2018, because his last win was in November of 2019 at the WGC HSBC Champions Tournament. He's not playing poorly, but he's not playing like the guy he was back then when 4 major championships were his entry into the Golf Hall of Fame at age 25. The only other players to accomplish that feat, Jack Nicklaus and, of course, Tiger Woods. So there's a couple of players there that you might be interested in taking a look at and betting on as far as the golf tournaments coming up tomorrow. Like we said, golf is a different animal altogether as far as a concept of betting. It's very similar to betting on auto racing, comes in the same way, because you do have over 80 golfers. So you're looking at, trying to pick one out of 80 to win a particular tournament. And of course, that's where the odds are the highest. But of course, you're having the most risk as well. But you can also select 2, 3, or 4 various golfers and think to yourself as to which golfer you think might be doing better than another golfer. Let's say you took Jon Rahm and McIlroy, but you thought that McIlroy would do better than Jon Rahm, or that Jon Rahm would do better than McIlroy, for instance. Then that's the way you would bet it. And all you have to do is sit back and see what happens, as to see whether all he has to do is do better than the other person that you're talking about. And there are other ways of betting as well. Like I said, we spent a couple of days about a month or two ago trying to explain to our listeners just how betting on golf and how you do it. And maybe if we have some time tomorrow, we'll probably try to go over it once again, because not only can you bet on Thursday, but after the tournament is over on Thursday, you can take a look and see where everybody is. The odds will change, obviously, and then you might be able to come in on Friday, or you can sit back and wait until Saturday, or even till Sunday. You don't have to bet right from the beginning. You could wait, come in on any one of those days as well. And it's pretty similar to when there's a car tournament, when you got a NASCAR race coming up. Hey, again, you've got over 100 cars in a race. How do you just pick out one? So you kind of pick a couple of them out, and you think that this particular race car will do better than the other. And that's just one of the many different ways that you can bet as far as auto racing is concerned, and the same way as far as golf is concerned as well. So let's take that final break. And when we do come back, we're going to take a look at some tips, handicapping tips and ideas on how to bet baseball. Now that it is here, we'll give you some thoughts and ideas and try to help you in that direction. So let's take that final break. And just a reminder, we will be back into the sports wagering zone right after this message. And welcome back. Welcome back. You're in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're going to be talking about some baseball handicapping ideas and tips. But first, I thought of a couple of more golfers that you might want to take a look at, and the odds, thanks to BetMGM, they sent them over to us. You have Jordan Spieth, who's 11-1. Okay, he's a good shot at possibly winning. He's getting a good share of the money, according to Mr. Avello over at BetMGM. He's saying that a lot of money has been coming in on Spieth, so he's getting a lot of attention right now. Then, of course, there's Justin Thomas. He's 11-1. as far as the odds are concerned, 11 to 1. And let's see, Brooks Koepka looks like a decent choice at 25 to 1. He's a 4-time major champion. And at before today, he was up as high as 40 to 1. He's already dropped down to 25 to 1. So perhaps he may be a possibility that you might want to take a closer look at. Now, Cameron Smith is at 40 to 1. He's an Australian. And of course, he was 5 strokes behind Johnson in November at that tournament last season as well. Then finally, if you're looking for a real long shot, look at Adam Scott. 65 to 1 are the odds on him right now. He's another Australian. He does pretty good in Augusta. Okay. He was the Masters winner in 2013. He ranks in the tour's top 20 as far as driving distance is concerned. Of course, DeChambeau ranks first. The guy's an animal. The guy can really hit that ball long and deep. So Adam Scott should make a run for the money. But his big problem is putting. So if his putting works out, he definitely has the ability to drive the ball up the fairway. So Adam Scott at 65 to 1, if you're looking for a real long shot, good possibility there. So that's the story as far as golf is concerned. It's going to be on for the next few days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll keep you up to date as to what's going on there. And like I say, you can bet at any time. You can come in and bet for starting on Thursday. You can sit back, relax, see what happens after that first day, and come in on Friday. Of course, obviously, the odds are going to be different on the players going into the second day, depending on where they were before. Someone who was maybe at 25 to 1 is now maybe in the top 5 or 6, so his odds are going to drop down. Or you can wait till Saturday or even up to the day of the final day, the tournament on Sunday. So it's up to you. Those are the different ways that you can bet golf. We leave it up to you to decide what to do. So let's leave golf for a minute and take a look at Major League Baseball again. I want to give you some betting tips, some handicapping ideas, how to pick the underdogs, because when you bet on baseball, like we said before, it's different than betting on any other sports. It's not like football. It's not like basketball. Baseball is predominantly a money line sport. Now, you can bet money line on football or basketball, but that's at the primary way that those teams are bet on. They usually, there's a line. One's a 5 or 6 point favorite, whatever it is. And that's the general rule of thumb as far as football and basketball are concerned. Baseball, however, is strictly a money line sport, which means that all you have to do is pick which team is going to win. Now, bettors also have more games to choose from compared to other sports. So, there's going to be 17 NFL games or over 60 NBA games, but there's usually 15 games a day. You look at a 162-day schedule, 2,400 games throughout the season. So you have a lot to choose from. So if you're new to betting on baseball, or if you have been betting on it before, but you're looking for some little help in some directions, here's some easy tips and ideas that can help you get into that profit column and try to avoid some of these most common mistakes that the average bettor makes. First of all, they love favorites. The public loves taking favorites. So avoid the big favorites. That's one thing you should be looking for. After all, people look at it and they say, well, they're the favorites, so they must be the better team and they must be expected to win. That's the philosophy. That's the thinking by the general public when it comes to betting on favorites. However, if you look at the books, they know that the public has this bias. So by doing that to protect themselves, what they do is they shade the lines toward the popular teams. In other words, a team that starts out as being a 5 to 1 may be bounced up. Is a minus 150 on the money line, may move up to a 155 or a 160. So if you're always laying 200, 250, or 300, you're assuming a big risk with very little reward. You're talking about betting 100, okay, to win 100, you're betting 200, 250, 300, maybe even more at sometimes. So if you like the big favorites, you might be better off taking them on the spread, also known as the run line. For example, instead of betting a favorite who's $300 on the money line, you could bet the team to win by 2 or more runs on the run line, which is 1.5. And the vig on that one is 140. So instead of betting 300 in case you lose, you're down to 140. And the only thing now is that you have to win by 2 runs or more. So that's what it's called. Very simply, it's called betting on the run line. Also, lean on the divisional underdogs. If you're going to bet underdogs, and here at the Sports Wagering Zone, we love underdogs. We're very contrarian on our philosophies. So to break even betting on a spread and on the over-under sports such as football and basketball, you have to win 52.3% of your plays, assuming that the juice is 110, okay? Now, one advantage in baseball is that if you avoid the big favorites and just pay attention and focus on the dogs, you can win under 50% and still be in the profit column, which turns a profit because it's based on the plus money payouts that dogs will pay. Think of saying plus 110 or plus 130 or even plus 175. Now, however, it doesn't mean you have to bet every dog that's out there. The key is you want to focus on divisional dogs. They perform much better than the underdogs when they're not playing within their division. And the reason for this is because there's a familiarity that's built into the teams. They're in the same division. They play each other 19 times or so a year. They know what to expect. They know all about the players. They scout the teams. They have scouting reports, managerial reports. Even the stadium is a little more familiar because they play more games there. This helps to keep the playing field level, and also in this way, it benefits the underdogs. Also, one other thing you want to do, target the dogs with high totals, favorites with low totals, and first fives. This is what we call first fives. That's where you bet on the first 5 innings, okay? They call it an F5 if you're talking in the lingo of the sporting world. Maybe you really like a starting pitcher in the matchup, but you're worried that, yeah, I know he's going to do pretty good, but he's only going to be there about 5 or 6 innings, and then in comes the bullpen, and they're not that well, or they're not that good. You could bet a team on the F5 line instead of betting on the full game. So this way, after 5 innings, you either win or you lose. Or maybe you like the F5 on the under instead of the full game under. Always know the options that you have available to you. And of course, finally, this is what we do here. We monitor the line movement. The way the line moves can tell you a lot about where the public is and also where the pro money is going. So line movement is critical as well. So if you kind of pay attention to some of those things, some of those ideas, some of those thoughts, you'll probably wind up doing much better when the season finally comes to an end. And hopefully at that point in time, you'll be having a larger profit. If you're having some profit right now, it's all good and well. But of course, by then, it might be better and even higher to speak of. So that's the story there. I want to thank you very much for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 4 p.m. We're here every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Saturdays and Sundays, we're here at 9 a.m. Eastern Time as well. So we're going to take a close look at the 2 games on tap that we talked about, the Mets-Phillies game and the Cardinals-Marlins game, and we'll put all those statistics together for you, and we'll talk about them tomorrow as well. So, like I said, thanks for listening. I hope you have a very pleasant Wednesday, which we kind of refer to here as Hump Day. Hope you have a pleasant one. And if you're going to bet baseball or basketball or hockey or anything, I wish you the best of luck. I really, we want our listeners to make money when they are betting. So until tomorrow at 4 p.m., I'm Chris Pardo. You've been listening to us on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as on some podcasting platforms as well, such as Apple Podcasts. And yeah, you can go on and talk about them, but they're most of the major platforms as well. I won't bore you with all those names. So once again, like I said, thanks for listening. Have a very pleasant Wednesday. But even more importantly than that, I hope you have a more profitable Wednesday as well. So until tomorrow at 4 p.m., have a good Wednesday, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody.